addition to what is looking like a strong squad for Manchester United. Not a squad which I feel can go and win the league yet, but a strong squad which will be able to compete at the top end and in the top half and top six of the Premier League, and also in the Champions League, and that'll give Michael good decisions to make in them positions.
You mentioned that Premier League experience because it feels like now when you look back with the signings of the likes of Anthony, Manuel Ugarte, maybe even Jadon Sancho, Rasmus Højlund and Zirkzee, even though he's still at the club and has had a good pre-season, that it was almost a gamble that failed for United, and they've gone to tried and trusted. You talk about the Premier League players with experience, Cunha and Mbeumo last summer, Tielemans, Santos, and now perhaps Baleba as well.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly important that Man United keep off where they left off last season, and obviously Michael's not going to have the time of a Saturday to Saturday games because of the Champions League. Everything else will come with it, all the different amount of games what he will have to play. So he will, invest in the squad. He's been trying to invest in the squad, as we've seen, and I think it's important that you have players who know the Premier League and have been able to have them demands put on them, because as you said, there's been so many now who've come who weren't tried and tested, and they haven't, and they failed, if you like, and they've been have to be moved on. So, yeah, I think it will be a good signing. How good we'll know on 60 million is a lot of money. So, yeah, he's going to have to hit the ground running. But I really can't understand why it took this long, because we've known that they've been pursuing him all along. And years ago, Man United would have had this deal done at the beginning of the season, pre-season, to give Michael him going into the season at the start.
Well, Baleba is heading to Old Trafford after establishing himself as a key player for Brighton over the last 3 seasons.
That VT showing all of Carlos Baleba's qualities. How will he fit into that Manchester United midfield? He has been on their list since last year, and now Michael Carrick is closing in on getting his man. Now, Baleba was seen as the Moises Caicedo replacement in the Brighton midfield, but it did take him a little bit of time to settle in England. Here is his percentage of available minutes played in the Premier League. So take his first season, for instance, 15 starts in his first season meant he only played 39% of available minutes. It really was 24-25 in the Premier League when he shone, 31 starts, and that equated to 78% of Premier League game time. He was linked with a move away last summer, and head coach Fabian Hertzler admitted that the player's head had been turned. And Baleba struggled to recreate his 24-25 season in the last campaign. He played less than 50% of available minutes for Brighton. It was a tough season across the board, really, for Baleba. Out of possession, his numbers were down. Still looked pretty OK, though. Recoveries per 90 down, dual success down, aerial slightly up, tackles down as well, interceptions holding steady. But it was the in-possession stuff where he really struggled, really. Forward passes and passing accuracy down. He also lost possession more under pressure, 3.3 in 24-25 per 90, and that went up to 4.7 per 90 last season. What many United fans have been wanting, though, if they signed another midfielder, was an athletic player in the centre of the park. You have to say that Baleba fits that bill. Looking at that 24-25 season at Brighton, he ranked in the top 5 against his other teammates for distance covered, high speed distance and sprint distance. He's also quick along the ground too. Only 3 of his teammates clocked a faster top speed. Now, if you were buying Baleba 12 months ago, it might well be talking about 90 to 100 million pounds. So is this United buying someone when they're dipping in the market? It might prove to be a bargain, Kevin.
Yeah, I think it will certainly prove to be a bargain if he can get back to that. What you've just shown there. I think the manager did speak out and say, his head had been turned by Manchester United at that time. The price tag, he seemed unhappy, and it affected his game. What he's got to do now, he's got to sort of hit the ground running, which is always difficult when you move from, and no disrespect, a club of Brighton's stature to a Man United, where everything, the expectancy is going to be on them numbers and more. So that's the big question: can he get back to them numbers?
Another midfielder. Dan, where are we with Carlos Baleba to United? Well, where we're at, Mike, is Manchester United are very close to agreeing a deal for this man, Carlos Baleba, with Brighton. We're expecting the deal to be done in the next few days. The final fee hasn't quite been agreed with Brighton yet, but we're expecting that to be just over £60 million. And look, a medical, we would imagine, will happen in the next few days as well, with the view of getting that done before Manchester United's opener against Hull on Saturday lunchtime. I think the interesting thing about Carlos Baleba is we might not see him in a Manchester United shirt if this happens until October, frankly, because he, at the moment, it has an ankle injury. He suffered in pre-season for Brighton, an ankle injury where he's not probably going to be back until the middle of September, but will Manchester United risk him to come back right before there's a 3-week international break? It's very interesting, but...
It's a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
It is.
He struggled last season with injury, and now he's injured already.
Yep.
Why are they buying him?
Because it's someone they have done their data on and someone they have long admired, Mike, really. This goes back well before last summer, but when they really cemented that interest, they thought their value or valuation for Baleba, Brighton's, was way too high for them to match, which was well over £80 million. Now that has come down by 20 million. We can look at his stats and numbers over the last 2 years. We know he had a dip last season. Maybe that did have to do with a failed move to Manchester United, but as you mentioned, he did have quite a few injuries as well. I mean, Ben, I know he did have a down season, but you look at the numbers the season before, no one talks about Moises Caicedo leaving Chelsea, and I think that is the biggest compliment you could have given him.
It is, and I think United will certainly want to get the player from 2 seasons ago, won't they? I mean, you look at these stats here, and in every metric defensively, certainly, he was better 2 seasons ago. Look, sources close to Brighton suggest that his head wasn't turned by the United interest, but it's probably wise to speculate something changed in his mindset. Yes, he had niggly injuries too, and from a United perspective, he has the quality, if it's the player from 2 seasons ago, certainly to really help them kick on. That midfield now looks strong, I will say that. You look at the players they've got in there. I mean, Bruno Fernandes has been brilliant. I mean, he's so good last year, wasn't he? But to think that he's now going to be supported by a fit Kobbie Mainoo, Mason Mount, if he ever gets back to play.
I'm not seeing any legs in that midfield, though.
Well, Carlos Baleba, I guess, is the one who brings the legs, because in Andre Santos, he gets around defensively, certainly, and Baleba, they want a player who, as Dan was saying, isn't just happy to sit in that double pivot, but can also break the lines too. And the key, I think, for me, actually, in that Manchester United lineup and the depth we're seeing here, Youri Tielemans is such a smart player, technically gifted, and what United have lacked is the player with the ability to have the ball under pressure deep, but also to break the lines. And that is the key here, because they can now, in theory, pass through the lines, get to different areas of the pitch much, much more quickly than they were able to.
And I
before.
think what Baleba offers is so much flexibility in that midfield. I mean, you can see him quite easily play next to Youri Tielemans, next to Kobbie Mainoo, and even Andre Santos, if you think they need to really defend away in the Champions League, for example. So I do think this move changes the dial of that midfield and outlook of that midfield. You are right, Mike, that is a concern. We might not see him in a Manchester United shirt until October, but I would argue that's okay, because that's not until when the season really gets going, when you think of Champions League football and when that depth we just looked at does become really important.
Dan Khan, clearly a believer. Dan, you interviewed Harry Maguire.
Yep.
He said, we need more signings. United need more signings, don't they?
Yeah, look, one source talked to me today about Manchester United's transfer window and what to expect in the closing stages. And, it was that, look, the signings they've made, I think, have been quite impressive when you consider £150 million just over that for 3 midfielders, which was the priority. I think when you consider Youri Tielemans, Andre Santos and Carlos Baleba for that value, I think that's very good business. However, over the last few weeks, they have been deciding whether to go for that third midfielder or spend bigger at the left back. They've decided on Baleba. So do they need another signing? At least one. Left back is incredibly, under strength when you think they only really have Luke Shaw. It has been suggested to me that there may not be any more business. However, I think things can change very quickly.
No more business. Dan, they played 40 games last season. They're going to play a lot more this season.
Absolutely.
Surely they need more bodies.
As we saw last summer, though, Mike, you can't address everything in one window. So last summer, they sorted Benjamin Šeško, Mateus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo. In that summer window, we were talking about needing to fix the midfield, but they weren't able to do that. They've addressed that in this window. They do have Nouassa Mazraoui, who did play there in the summer for Morocco at left back. They do have Diogo Dalot. Lenny Yoro could cover at right back, although that's not his favoured position. There are options. I'm not saying they won't. It has just been suggested to me. I think we will see a situation where they will likely bring in a left back. It just might be at a much lower budget to the transfers we've seen so far.
What do you think, Ben? Have they got enough?
No, I think
they're in Europe.
No, I don't think so, because Dan's pointing out the problem position, a left back. Now the whole left side of that United team looks relatively weak, doesn't it? I think you can't. Luke Shaw's not the same player he was 5 years ago when he's going to bomb and make those overlapping runs. You're not going to get that from him. They've got Rashford to try and reintegrate into this squad. Will he play a part on that left-hand side? But I guess Patrick Dorgu could still play at left back, even though predominantly in pre-season he's been playing a much further forward than that. So in an offensive sense, they look a lot better than a few years ago. I will say that. They've got Premier League experience, and Dan was right to point out Cunha and Mbeumo particularly bring that, and the goal threat. Now that central midfield, the pivot particularly, looks very, very strong. I still have questions over them defensively. I'm not sure, even at right back, Diogo Dalot, I'm not sure whether Nouassa Mazraoui either. I'm not sure either of them are particularly the level they'll need to be. Let's not forget, next year is when they win the Premier League.
And Dan, you cover United for us, obviously. Yep. Ben just mentioned him. Rashford, going or staying?
Right now, Mike, he's staying. And again, things can change. I caveat that all the time because, as we've seen with Manchester City, for example, we've seen with Arsenal, things can change very quickly. I think Carlos Baleba was a very quick, not decision because they've done their research and data on him, but was a quick decision in terms of this wasn't maybe the case 24, 48 hours ago that they were pursuing a deal for him. So look, Marcus Rashford right now will be a Manchester United player beyond the deadline. However, we don't know, say, after the first weekend of the Premier League, a club might, not panic, but go, actually, we quite need a Marcus Rashford. And I think Manchester United at this point would entertain that interest. But you need two things to happen. You need that interest to come to United, which I don't think they've had too much yet. But I think the interest they have had, it's not been what Marcus Rashford has wanted. He wants to play elite level football. There aren't that many clubs that fall into that category. So unless something changes with both sides' expectations, he's going to be in a Manchester United shirt.